the people who were the big voices fighting for those things couldn't hold on, how am I supposed to? Hello, my beautiful internet friends in our Trauma Talk community. Welcome back. I am Jo, your host. Today's topic is going to be one that is so very near and dear to my heart, and I know it's something that so many of us have struggled with. In fact, I don't know anyone who has gone through trauma in their lives who hasn't struggled with this topic. I would be happy to hear of someone who has dealt with trauma who hasn't, but unfortunately it's so common. Quick heads up, as you might see from the title, we're going to be talking about suicidal thoughts, leaders in the suicide prevention movement, and this is going to be a pretty heavy topic, so please only watch if you feel like you're in a safe mental space to hear this. A tattoo I have often considered getting, and I may pretty soon, is the Semicolon tattoo. The Semicolon tattoo and the Semicolon Project, which is an organization, were started in 2013 by a lovely lady named Amy Bleuel, I believe is how you say her last name. I will link the article down below where I'm getting most of this information. She is someone who went through significant trauma in her life and dealt with depression and anxiety and a lot of suicidal thoughts. But the whole idea of a semicolon is that it's somewhere a story could have ended, but it chose to go on, right? So the idea behind this is those of us who have struggled with those thoughts and continue to fight through and are still here. It's a testament to that. It's a reminder to ourselves that our story isn't over. But what happens when the people who lead these movements, the people who are outspoken voices to stay alive, the people who we call our heroes, who have given us hope in our darkest times, what happens when the darkness that they spoke so vehemently against, that they fought so hard against, that they fought against for others, what happens when that overtakes them? So Amy, the woman who started this movement, Amy, took her own life a few months ago. I just finished watching a video by my friend Brenda over at God is Grey. I'll link it down below, where she talked about the heartbreaking, tragic loss of Pastor Jarrid Wilson, who took his own life a couple weeks ago. He was an incredible person who spoke about the need for better mental health care in the Christian community, which you guys know I care passionately about. He worked really hard to make that happen. He was such a positive voice to speak up if you're having a hard time, to seek help if you're dealing with whatever, fill in the blank. He was honest about his struggles with depression and suicide. Chester Bennington, who you guys might know is a personal hero of mine since I was a kid, the lead singer of Linkin Park, was a huge voice for mental health care, for how important it is to talk about things that are going on, again, for suicide prevention, and suicide took his life as well a few years ago. I'm gonna talk a little bit about my own experience and thought process for just a second here. Chester, like I said, personal hero. He got me through some incredibly dark times in my life. He gave a voice to feelings I didn't know how to say. He sang to me from the time that I was 13 till present day. It seemed like every time I heard one of his songs, he was singing to me, like it was something I needed to hear. And he was oftentimes a huge contributing factor to why I held on. And then he wasn't able to hold on any longer. And that wrecked me. I mean, I was in a dark place when that happened, and it brought me closer to the brink of taking my own life than I've ever come before, which is saying something because I've been in some really dark places. When he ended his life, because I saw so much of myself in him, because he was such a strong voice for sticking around, for hope, for staying alive, for working through things, for the fact that you can go through insane trauma in your lives and still be alive and still find happiness. And these are my words now, I felt like he quit. Like that was where my head was. I felt like he gave in to the things that he fought so hard publicly against. And I just kept thinking, like, if he couldn't do it, maybe all of this really doesn't mean anything. Maybe this fight is stupid. Honestly, maybe I should give up too. Because he was my hero. Because I looked up to him and he couldn't do it. Because it sure looked like he worked his ass off to get through the things that he had gotten through. And it wasn't enough. And I felt like I was doing those same things. And I was in a dark place, and I was like, you know what, maybe it never is enough, maybe it never will be enough, and maybe the pain will never go away. And I felt like the story of his life and then how it had ended was a testament to that for some reason. Those thoughts are inaccurate. Those thoughts are not the truth. They are just my honest feelings and where I was. And then a number of things happened in my life, and I got significant help. I really started to talk to people, and I'm in a massively better place now than I was then. But the pain of his loss has not left me. I feel compassion and heartbreak for what has happened, not only to Chester, but to all of these leaders in suicide prevention movements who have lost their lives to suicide, that suicide has taken from us. So what do we do when that happens? Like, what do we do when the people who are leading these movements take their own lives? And someone suggested this to me a while ago, and I honestly think it's a better way of putting it: when suicide takes their lives. If I'm honest, it can feel like it invalidates what they were saying, especially if you're struggling. It can feel like all of the things that they were fighting for maybe just weren't enough. You know, if the people who were the big voices fighting for those things couldn't hold on, how am I supposed to? I had many conversations with my counselor about this, and something she stressed to me over and over and over again is, you do not know their story entirely. We know pieces of other people's lives. We know what they choose to share with us. You know what I choose to share with you. And I try really hard to be honest and vulnerable because I am so aware of how easy it is to script things, because I'm so aware of how easy it is to portray whatever you want to other people. And I'm not suggesting that these people did that. I actually think they are some of the most honest and vulnerable and real voices that we have had, but we don't know their story. So to think because suicide took their lives, it's hopeless, our lives are hopeless, our stories are hopeless, is wrong. That's just not true. We have no idea what really happened. We have no idea the full extent of what was happening in their heads and in their hearts and in their lives. And I will forever be a little bit heartbroken for these losses. But if this is a thought that you're struggling with, like I was, know that their loss has absolutely no impact on the beauty of their work, on the beauty of their word. The words that they spoke of hope, the words that they spoke to continue fighting are still true. Warriors get tired, and it absolutely shatters my heart that on the days that these things happen, they couldn't see to the next day. They couldn't hear the truth of their own words on those days. But that doesn't mean that what they were fighting for isn't true still. It doesn't mean that they were lying about it. I think we all know that one of the funny things about people is we can know something is true and yet not feel it. We can know something is true and yet not do it. Like, I knew up top, you know, like logically for the longest time that, like, okay, trauma that happened to me wasn't my fault, but I sure as hell felt it. I sure as hell felt the crushing weight of that for a solid 8 years. We can know things are true and still not choose to, for whatever reason, follow those things. Is it okay to be angry at what happened? Absolutely. But I would encourage us all to have as much compassion for them as they encourage us to have. Which is a lot. Depression is a horrible, horrible thing. It takes lives every day. Those of us here who are fighting need to keep fighting that good fight, need to keep reaching out for help. Their passing does not mean that the things people talk about don't work. It simply means that depression took their lives. It means that suicide took their lives. It means that they made a choice that day that took them from the world. It doesn't mean that life is hopeless. It doesn't mean that what they are preaching is wrong. It doesn't mean that what they were saying was an error. It doesn't even mean that words that they spoke weren't true. Chester helped write a song called One More Light. It's a beautiful song, it's heartbreaking, and it's about the pain of losing someone to suicide. He wrote that song. He wrote beautiful, compassionate words about losing someone and how complicated emotionally that is, to say the least. If you comb through his lyrics, you knew that he struggled, but that he fought so hard to hold on to hope. I think we can say that of all of the thought leaders in these movements. But sometimes horrible things happen. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it's enough. Sometimes we make choices that aren't good for us. Sometimes we don't reach out for help when we need it. And the moral of the story is we do not know exactly what was going on as much as we like to think we do. So if you are like I was, if you feel like Pastor Jarrid Wilson losing his life to suicide is somehow proof that you shouldn't hold on, is somehow proof that his words weren't really as powerful as you felt that they were, that's not true. His words were powerful, and we should continue to help live out his legacy. If you got a semicolon tattoo to help remind you that your story isn't over, and you heard that Amy Bleuel took her own life, and think, maybe my story is over just like hers was, know that that's not true. She created an incredible legacy, and we should all continue to work to live that out. When I hear these stories, my heart shatters. I hope that we can create a world where suicide is less common and less common and less common and less common. Life is worth fighting for. Depression convinces you that it's not sometimes, but depression is lying to you. Please hold on to hope. please keep fighting. It's worth it for you and for the people who love you. My heart is with the family and the friends of and every person who was impacted by Amy's life and Jarrid's life and Chester's life. You're not alone. There is help out there and it's worth holding on. I know I'm saying this a lot, but I feel like I need to hear it many times, and maybe you do too. Let me know what you guys are thinking down below. I would love to read your comments. Know that I read everyone, though I often don't have time to respond to everyone. Legitimately, I have read every comment I have ever received here on Trauma Talk. Thanks for listening to me, guys. I hope that you are taking care of yourselves because you're worth it. Your story is valid. What you have gone through is valid. You're not alone. I love you guys. I'm thinking of you, and I'll see you in the next video here. Bye, guys.